Vaishnava institution, and the monks invited him to meet their guru. Like other well-to-do residents of Calcutta, Narendra was willing to support religious organizations if they were honorable. But honor was not always obvious. Many sannyasis came knocking at his door looking for donations. Who could tell what their motives were? Matha, religious schools abounded, and the monks charged with raising funds looked more or less alike. There was every chance his money would be wasted supporting a place for loafers who sponged off innocent Hindu families. The great danger was inadvertently giving money to monks who indulged in sex or ate meat. Celibacy and a meat-free diet were behavioral requirements for Vaishnavas. Narendra's friend Abhay always had good advice to offer, and Narendra asked that he accompany him to the mutt and provide a second opinion. Abhay declined. From childhood, he said he had seen cheaters dressed like monks exploit his father's charitable nature. They took Gaur Mohan's donations, stepped outside his door, and lit up marijuana cigarettes. Some of his family relations, ran a boarding house for single men. Abhay recalled seeing one of these boarders dressed in saffron robes gulp down a cup of tea, finish a cigarette, then grab his water pot and staff and head out the door to collect his daily sadhu's donations. Abhay had no patience for such people. I am not going, he told Narendra. There were more pressing matters. Orders in his pharmacy were waiting to be filled, supplies needed to be restocked. There were customers to serve, meetings of Gandhi movements to organize, and simply no time for listening to another so-called guru sprout off. Come on, Narendra insisted. As a courtesy to his friend, Abhay agreed to go. They arrived at a building on Ultadanga Junction Road in North Calcutta. A sign over the door announced that the one-storied structure was headquarters of Gaudiya Math, the monastery of Greater India. Abhay and Narendra climbed a worn marble staircase to the roof. Air conditioning was scarce in those days, and public events were often scheduled on rooftops where evening breezes offered relief from the day's heat. Monks greeted the two guests and brought them to the front of the gathering to meet the head of their mission. Even seated, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's stature was obvious to Abhay. This was not another pretend sadhu. He seemed at least 6 feet tall and sat ramrod straight. His forehead was broad and high, his color fair. He wore the traditional robes of a sannyasi. 2 red-dyed lengths of cloth, one wrapped around his waist, the other draped around his shoulders. 3 strands of small wooden tulsi beads looped around his neck. 2 stripes of white clay ran from the bridge of his nose to the shaved head, the full uniform of a devout Krishna worshipper. And in Bhaktisiddhanta's case, Acharya of Gaudiya Math. Vaishnava community elders elevated a candidate to the exalted position of Acharya, head of a recognized lineage of teachers, based on mastery of scripture and personal character. Historically, some Acharyas received their appointment as a result of family affiliation, for there was a sentiment that virtue and ability were inherited. If, for instance, a man's father and grandfather had served with distinction, it was assumed he possessed comparable talents. In Bhaktisiddhanta's case, both criterion applied. He was the son of the late Bhakti Vinod Thakur, respected former head of the Vaishnava community and prolific author and poet, and in his own right, Bhaktisiddhanta demonstrated the character and wisdom of a true Acharya. Abhay and Narendra touched their foreheads to the ground on the traditional way of greeting a holy person. Something about Abhay must have been impressed itself upon Bhaktisiddhanta, as barely had Abhay stood up when Bhaktisiddhanta said, "You are an educated young man. Why don't you take Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message and spread it in English to the Western world?" In the years to come, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada would describe that he hesitated when his guru issued the instruction that changed his life. Leave everything and travel to West? How could he do that? Of course, Abhay knew quite a bit about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His father and mother had raised him as a Chaitanya follower, and since childhood he had been chanting Hare Krishna as Mahaprabhu had taught. But aside from an astrologer's questionable prediction, nothing in the profile of Abhay's life suggested he would become a religious leader. He and his wife Radharani had a 1-year-old daughter and were planning to have more children. He earned an honest living and paid his bills and left this religious grandstanding to others. More to the point, Abhay followed Gandhi and believed the real key to moving India forward was freedom from British rule. For hundreds of years, Bengal's Hindus and Muslims had lived in relative peace. It was the British who set one religion on the other and turned neighbors into enemies. When it came to choosing between religion and nationhood to Abhay's 26-year-old man, Gandhi's movement came first. Rid India of Raj, and their millennial wisdom will have a platform of expression. Sir, Abhay said, who will hear Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message as long as we are a dependent nation? Let us first achieve our independence, then we can spread Indian culture. Bhaktisiddhanta disagreed. Mahaprabhu's message did not depend on politics. Real independence, he said, meant freeing the soul from the shackles of illusion. Doctrines of impersonalism and voidism pervaded India's thinking. These dangerous ideas, decrying the personhood of God, were the true enemies, not the British. Until people were trained to know the difference between body and the soul's ultimate fulfillment in love of God, they would never know peace. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had given the formula: chant Hare Krishna, follow the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, and the Son of Krishna will rise to illumine a dark time. It was indeed a dark time. In 1920, a visit by Prince of Wales had turned into a 4-day riot. Shops were pillaged and any Europeans seen in public were attacked. Just a week before Abhay's meeting with Bhaktisiddhanta, a mob stormed a police station in the town of Churi Chaura, beat 22 officers to death and burned their bodies. Nationalism had released poisonous resentment and civil disobedience were careening out of control. As much as Abhay had convinced himself Gandhi held the torch of truth, he could not stand by that conviction after hearing Bhaktisiddhanta speak about re-spiritualizing the world. By comparison with such a global mission, Gandhi's plans for a politically independent country seemed stunted and trifling. Up to that moment, Abhay's perspective had been primarily Indian. Bhaktisiddhanta was proposing something greater, something universal. Despite his attraction to nationalism, something in the brief exchange between Bhaktisiddhanta quickened Abhay's pulse. They had not spoken long, maybe an hour, but in that one short space of time, Bhaktisiddhanta managed to refute Abhay's assumption that God took a backseat to politics and that independence offered a lasting solution to India's woes. India suffered from lack of a spiritual revolution, Bhaktisiddhanta argued, and campaigning for political independence merely distracted from the more critical campaign launched by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to reinstate God in his creation. British rule was irrelevant. Not only India, but all of humanity needed liberating. The next day, Abhay walked into the office of his employer, Dr. Kartik Chandra Bose, and resigned. Bose had been Dey's family doctor for more than 20 years and had watched Abhay grow up. The elder physician appreciated the personal touch Abhay always brought to their customers, such as answering requests for pricing with handwritten letters, but Bose also recognized how headstrong Abhay could be and knew better than to question his plans. I understand your attraction to this teacher, Bose said, Still, you are a family man. I will give you a franchisee to my company's products. Sell wherever you like, whenever you like. The commission will be more than your current salary, and you will still have time for your pursuits. Abhay weighed his options. What was work or money or even family compared to the instruction he had received on the roof of Gaudiya Math's? Bhaktisiddhanta had opened his eyes to the meaning of Krishna devotion, and taking Krishna's message to the West was no trifling matter. It would not happen between sales calls. Still, Bose had a point. No one travels abroad without funds, and pharmaceuticals had potential. India was ripe for Indian-made goods, and Bose's prices were better than those of the British. Maybe he could save some money and then go to the West. Abhay agreed to Bose's offer to start a franchisee. The talk with his wife did not go well. Radharani did not share her husband's enthusiasms, political, religious, or otherwise. And here he was telling her Gandhi had it wrong and that he would be going to the West. There were no witnesses or diaries from which to assess her reaction to Abhay's meeting with Bhaktisiddhanta, but when they married, it is likely she did not envision becoming a missionary's wife. Following is an excerpt from lecture given by Srila Prabhupada on the occasion of disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura, 1973, Los Angeles. Srila Prabhupada. So, when I met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura, it's a long story how I met him. One of my friends, he dragged me, laughter. I was at that time nationalist and manager in a big chemical factory. My age was about 24 years. So one of my friends, he asked me that there is a nice sadhu Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura. He has come in Calcutta, so let's go and see. So I was reluctant. I thought just like so, there are so many sadhus. So I was not very much, because I had very bad experience, not very good. So I said, oh, these kind of sadhus, there are many. You'll be glad to know that even in my young age or early age, it was Krishna's grace. Even among my young friends, I was considered the leader. In my school days, in my college days, in my private friendships, somewhere or the other I became their leader. And one astrologer, sometimes he read my hand. He said in Hindi, Kukum Chalena. Kukum Chalena means your hand speaks that your order will be executed. Devotees Jai, Prabhupada. So anyway, it was Krishna's grace. So I would not go, but their point of view was that unless I certify that Sadhu Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he will not prepare to be accepted. Therefore, he dragged me. So I went to see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur on that day. On the first meeting, just we offered obeisances. It is a practice. So immediately he began his talk saying, you are all educated young men. Why don't you take up Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult and preach all over the English-knowing people? Why didn't you take up this matter? So I argued with him, so many. At that time I was nationalist, so I told that who will accept our message? We are a dependent nation, nobody will care. In this way, in my own way, in these younger days, but we belong to the Vaishnava family, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda, Radha Govinda, that is our worshipable deity. So I was very glad that Radha Krishna cult, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult, this sadhu is trying to preach. It's very nice. So at that time we had some talks, and of course I was defeated by his arguments, and then when we came out, we were offered prasadam, very nice treatment, the Gaudiya Math. And when I came out on the street, my friend asked me, what is your opinion of this sadhu? Then I said that here is the right person who has taken up Sri Chaitanya's message, and now it will be distributed. Devotees Jai. Prabhupada. So I was at that time a fool, but I opined like this. And I accepted him as my spiritual master immediately. Not officially, but in my heart. That was in 1922. Abhay's second meeting with Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura in Vrindavan. Following is an excerpt from volume 1 of Srila Prabhupada Leelamarta by Satswarup Das Goswami. In October of 1932, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati led a group of hundreds of disciples and pilgrims on a month-long parikrama or circumambulation of sacred places of Vrindavan. Vrindavan residents and visitors perform parikram by following the old dry bed of Yamuna river and circumambulating the Vrindavan area, stopping at places where Krishna performed his pastimes when he roamed in Vrindavan 5000 years ago. Abhay had wanted to attend Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's parikrama but couldn't because of his work. Nevertheless, on the 20th day of the pilgrimage, he travelled from Allahabad, intent on seeing Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati again and hoping to join the parikram party at Koshi, just outside Vrindavan, at least for a day. When Abhay had heard from the members of the Allahabad Gaudiya Mutt about the parikrama, he had been fully occupied with his local Prayag pharmacy business and travelling to secure new accounts. But he had calculated how he could join at least a day or two, and he had fixed his mind on obtaining the darshana of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Srila Prabhupada. I was not initiated at that time of the parikrama, but I was very good admiration for these Gaudiya Mutt people. They are very kind to me. So I thought, what are these people doing in this parikrama? Let me go. So I met him at Koshi. Srila Prabhupada. So I met him in Koshi, and Keshav Maharaj was informing that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is going to Mathura tomorrow morning, and he will speak Harikatha this evening. Anyone who wants to may remain, or otherwise they may go to see Sheshashai Vishnu. So at that time I think only 10 or 12 men remained. Sridhar Maharaj was one of them, and I thought it was wise. What can I see at this Sheshashai? Let me hear Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati will speak. Let me hear. When Abhay arrived, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was already speaking. He sat with his back erect, a shawl around his shoulders, not speaking like a professional lecturer, giving a scheduled performance, but addressing a small gathering in his room. At last, Abhay was in the presence again. 1922-1933. First meeting 1922, next second meeting 1933, 11 years later. When Abhay arrived, Srila Bhakti was already speaking. He sat with his back erect, a shawl around his shoulders, etc. Abhay marveled to see and hear him, this unique soul possessed of Krishna Katha, speaking uninterruptedly about Krishna in his deep, low voice, in ecstasy and deep knowledge. Abhay sat and heard with rapt attention. An hour went by, 2 hours. The already small gathering in Bhaktisiddhanta's room gradually thinned. A few sannyasis left, excusing themselves to tend to their duties connected with Parikram camp. Only a few intimate leaders remained. Abhay was the only outsider. Of course, he was a devotee, not an outsider, but in the sense that he was not a sannyasi and not handling any duties, but not even initiated, and was not traveling with the Parikram, but had joined only a day in that sense. In that sense, he was an outsider. Philosophically, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was speaking, however, was democratically open to whoever would give an ardent hearing, and that Abhay was doing. He was listening with wonder. Sometimes he would not even understand something, but he would go on listening intently, submissively, his intelligence drinking in the words. He felt Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati revealing to him the direct vision of the spiritual world, just as a person reveals something by opening a door or pushing aside a curtain. He was revealing the reality, and this reality was loving service to the lotus feet of Radha Krishna, the supremely worshipable personality of Godhead. How masterfully he spoke, and with utter conviction and boldness. It was with such awe that Abhay listened with fascinated attention. Of course, all Vaishnavas accept Krishna as their worshipable Lord, but how conclusively and with what sound logic was the faith of the Vaishnavas established by this great teacher? After several hours, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta stopped speaking. Abhay felt prepared to go on listening without cessation, and yet he had no puzzling doubts or queries to place forward. He wanted only to hear more. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta made his exit, Abhay bowed, offered his obeisances, and then left the intimate circle of sannyasis in the row of tents and went to the outer circle of the tents, his mind surcharged with the words of his spiritual master. Abhai's third meeting with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Allahabad. Excerpt from Prabhupada Leelamrita by Satsvarup Das Goswami. Abhay had only recently returned from Vrindavan to his work at Prayag Pharmacy when the devotees at Allahabad Gaudiya Mutt informed him of the good news. They had secured land and funds for constructing a building, the Rupa Gaudiya Mutt, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would be coming on November 21st to preside over the ceremony for the laying of the cornerstone. Sir William Malcolm Haley, Governor of United Provinces, would be respected guest and in a grand ceremony would lay the foundation stone in the presence of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. When Abhay learned that there would be an initiation ceremony, he asked if he could be initiated. Atulananda, the Mata's president, assured Abhay that he would introduce him to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. At home, Abhay discussed his initiation plan with his wife. She had no objection, but she did not want to take initiation herself. They were already worshipping the deity at home and offered their food to the deity. They believed in God and were living peacefully. But for Abhay, that was not enough. Although he would not force his wife, he knew that he must be initiated by a pure devotee. Avoiding sinful life, living piously, these things were necessary and good, but in themselves they did not constitute spiritual life and could not satisfy the yearning of the soul. Life's ultimate goal and absolute necessity of self was love of Krishna. That love of Krishna his father had already inculcated within him. Now he had taken the next step. His father would have been pleased to see him do it. But by taking initiation from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he would be linked with Krishna. Bhaktisiddhanta, son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, disciple of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, was a guru in the 12th disciplic succession from Lord Chaitanya. He was the foremost Vedic scholar of the age, the expert Vaishnava who could guide one back to Godhead. He was empowered by his predecessors to work for the highest welfare by giving everyone Krishna consciousness, the remedy for all sufferings. Abhay felt that he had already accepted Srila Bhaktisiddhanta as his spiritual master and that from the very first meeting he had already received his orders. Now if Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would accept him as his disciple, the relationship would be confirmed. He was coming so soon after Abhay had seen and heard him in Vrindavan. That was how Krishna acted through his representative. It was as if the spiritual master, in coming to where Abhay had his family and business, was coming to draw him further into spiritual life. Without Abhay's having attempted to bring it out, his relationship with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was deepening. Now Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was coming to him as if by higher arrangement. On the day of the ceremony, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati met with his disciples at Allahabad Gaudiya Mutt on the South Mallaka Street. While he was speaking Harikatha and taking questions, Atulananda Brahmachari took the opportunity to present several devotees, Abhay among them as candidates for initiation. The Allahabad devotees were proud of Mr. De, who regularly attended the Matha in the evening and led bhajans, listened to the teachings and spoke them himself, and often brought respectable guests. He had contributed money and had induced his business colleagues also to do so. With folded palms, Abhay looked up humbly at his spiritual master. He and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta were now face to face. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta recognized him and visibly pleased to see him. He already knew him. Yes, he said, exchanging looks with Abhay. He likes to hear. He does not go away. I have marked him. I will accept him as my disciple. As a moment and the words became impressed into his being, Abhay was in ecstasy. Atulananda was pleasantly surprised that his Gurudev was already in approval of this. Other disciples in the room were also pleased to witness Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's immediate acceptance of Dey as a good listener. Some of them wondered when or where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had arrived at such an estimation of the young pharmacist. At the initiation, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was seated on a Vyasasana and the room was filled with guests and members of the Gaudiya Mutt. Those to be initiated sat around a small mound of earth where one of the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati sannyasis prepared a fire and offered grains and fruits into the flames, while everyone chanted mantra for purification. Abhay's sister and brother were present, but not his wife. Abhay basked in the presence of his Gurudev. Yes, he likes to hear the words of his spiritual master, and his glance of recognition had remained with Abhay. Abhay would continue pleasing his spiritual master by hearing well. Then he thought, I'll be able to speak well. The Vedic literature describes 9 processes of devotion service, the first of which is Shravanam, hearing about Krishna. Then came Kirtanam, chanting about and glorifying him. By sitting patiently and hearing at Koshi, he pleased Krishna's representative. And when Krishna's representative was pleased, Krishna was pleased. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had not praised him for donating money to the mutt, but he hadn't advised him to forsake his family and business and travel with him, nor had he asked Abhay to perform great austerities like the yogis. But he likes to hear, he said. I have marked him. Abhay thought about it again and again, listened carefully as a spiritual master conducted the initiation. Finally, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta called for Abhay to come forward and receive the Harinam initiation by accepting his beads. After offering prostrated obeisances, Abhay extended his right hand and accepted the strand of beads, japa beads, from the hands of his spiritual master. At the same time, he also received the sacred Brahminical thread signifying second initiation. Usually, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave the first initiation, Harinam, and only after some time, when he was satisfied with the progress of the disciple, would he give the second initiation. But he offered Abhay both initiations at the same time. Now, Abhay was a full-fledged disciple, a Brahmana who could perform sacrifices such as fire yajna for initiation. He could worship the deity in the temple and would be expected to discourse widely. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta added Aravinda, lotus, to his name. Now he was Abhay Charana Aravinda. After Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left Allahabad for Calcutta, Abhay keenly felt the responsibility of working on behalf of a spiritual master. At the initiation, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had instructed Abhay to study Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which outlined the loving exchanges between Krishna and his devotees, and explain how a devotee can advance in spiritual life. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu was a law book for devotional service, and Abhay would study it carefully. He was glad to increase his visits to the Allahabad center and to bring new people. Even at his first meeting with his spiritual master, he had received the instruction to preach the mission of Lord Chaitanya, and now he began steadily and carefully considering how to do so. Preaching was a responsibility at least as binding as that of home and business. Even in his home, he wanted to engage as far as possible in preaching. Srila Prabhupada. So anyway, from 1922 to 1933, practically I was not initiated, but I got the impression of preaching this Chaitanya's cult. That I was thinking, and that was the initiation by my Guru Maharaj. Abhay's 4th meeting. Abhay would go to see him at Chaitanya Mutt, at the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya in Mayapur. One day at Chaitanya Mutt, Abhay was in the courtyard when a large poisonous snake crawled out in front of him. Abhay called out for his godbrothers, but when they came, everyone simply stood looking, uncertain what to do. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta came out on his veranda of the 2nd floor, glanced down, saw the snake, and immediately ordered, "Kill it." A boy then took a large stick, and killed the snake. Srila Prabhupada. So I thought, how is it that Guru Maharaj ordered the snake to be killed? I was a little surprised. Later on I saw this verse, and then I was very glad. Modheta sadhur api vrikshika sarpa hatya. Even saintly persons take pleasure in killing of a scorpion or a snake. It had remained a doubt how Guru Maharaj ordered the snake to be killed. But when I read this verse, I was very much pleased that this creature or creatures like the snake should not be shown any mercy. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was reputed to be so austere and so strong in argument against other philosophies that even his own disciples were cautious in approaching him if he were sitting alone or if they had no business with him. Yet, even though Abhay's contact with him was quite limited, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta would always treat him kindly. Srila Prabhupada, whenever I met my Guru Maharaj, he would always treat me very affectionately. Sometimes my godbrothers would criticize because I would talk a little freely with him, and they would quote this English saying, "Fools rush in where angels fear to tread." But I would think, fool, well maybe, but that is why I am. My Guru Maharaj was always very, very affectionate to me. When I offered obeisances, he used to return, "Dasos me, I am your servant." Sometimes, as Srila Bhakti Siddhanta paced back and forth chanting the Hare Krishna mantra aloud while fingering his beads, Abhay would enter the room and also chant, walking alongside his spiritual master. Once when Abhay entered Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's room, his spiritual master was sitting on a couch, and Abhay took his seat beside him on an equal level. But then he noticed that all other disciples in the room were sitting on a lower level at the spiritual master's feet. Abhay kept his seat and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta said nothing of it, but Abhay never again sat on an equal level with the spiritual master. Once in a room with many disciples, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was speaking, and Abhay listened. When an old man beside Abhay motioned to him, as Abhay leaned over to hear what the man wanted, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta suddenly spoke out in annoyance at the two, apparently inattentive students. "Babu," he first addressed the old man beside Abhay, Do you think you have purchased me with your 150 rupee donation per month?" And turning to Abhay, "Why don't you come up here and speak instead of me?" Abhay was outwardly mortified, yet he treasured the rebuke. Srila Prabhupada, in a private meeting that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta once told Abhay of the risks he took by preaching so boldly. Srila Prabhupada, my Guru Maharaj contribution is that he defeated the caste Goswamis. He defeated Brahmanism. He did it the way as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Kiba vipra kiba nyasi shudra kena naya Krishna tattva sei guru hai." There is no consideration whether one is a sannyasi, brahmana, a shudra or a grahastha. No. Anyone who knows the signs of Krishna is all right. He is a Goswami and he is brahmana. But no one else taught that since Lord Chaitanya. No one else taught that since Lord Chaitanya. That was my Guru Maharaj's contribution, and for this reason he had to face so many vehement protests from these brahmanas of the caste Goswamis. Once they conspired to kill him. My Guru Maharaj told me personally, by his grace, when we used to meet alone, he used to talk about so many things. He was so kind that he used to talk with me, and he personally told me that these people, they wanted to kill me. They collected 25,000 rupees and went to bribe the police officer in charge of the area, saying, "You take these 25,000 rupees, we shall do something against Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and you don't take any steps." He could understand that they wanted to kill him, so the police officer frankly came to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. Of course, we accept bribes and we indulge in such things, but not for a sadhu, not for a saintly person. I cannot dare. So the police officer refused and said to my Guru Maharaj, "You take care, this is the position." This was because he was so vehemently protested. Abhay had the opportunity to see his spiritual master deal with a nationalist Subhash Chandra Bose, who had been Abhay's schoolmate at Scottish Church College. Bose had come in somewhat critical mood, concerned about Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's recruiting young men into religious life. Prabhupada, Subhash Chandra Bose came to my Guru Maharaj and said, "So many people you have captured, they are doing nothing for nationalism." My Guru Maharaj replied, "Well, for your national propaganda you require very strong men, but these men are very weak." You can see they are very skinny. So don't put your glance upon them. Let them eat something and chant Hare Krishna. In this way he avoided him. Abhay went on listening to his spiritual master at every opportunity. But rarely did Abai put a philosophical inquiry before him. He preferred simply to listen. Srila Prabhupada, I never asked my spiritual master a question except one. How shall I serve you? Sometime later, Bhaktisiddhanta lectured at a crowd and had assembled for a parikram and walking tour of Mayapur, the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Guru Maharaj was looking out at a large crowd of devotees. Nayananda Dasa Brahmachari recalled. Then he turned his head towards the left side where I was standing. He looking intently at someone behind me and became silent for a long moment. I turned and saw that the person with whom he was making eye contact was Abhay Charanaranda Prabhu. I have a prediction, Bhaktisiddhanta announced. However long in future it may be, one of my disciples will cross the ocean. The devotee will bring back the whole world. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki. Srila Prabhupada, my Guru Maharaj ordered me, you do this, but I thought, let me first become a rich man, then I shall do. In the beginning I was thinking, now my god brothers have taken sannyasa. They are begging from door to door. Why shall I beg? Let me earn money and start Krishna consciousness. It was the 62nd birthday of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, 62nd birthday at Jagannath Puri. There Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was residing. The devotees observed the day with ceremony. At the small Bombay center, the few disciples planned an evening observance and invited local people for the occasion. Abhay wrote a poem. Adore, adore ye all the happy day, blessed than heaven, sweeter than May. When he appeared at Puri, the holy place, my Lord and Master, His divine grace. O my Master, the evangelic angel, give us thy light, light up thy candle, struggle for existence a human race, the only hope, His divine grace. Misled we are, all going astray, save us, Lord, our fervent pray. Wonder thy ways to turn our face. Adore thy feet, your divine grace. Forgotten Krishna, we fallen souls, paying most heavy the illusion's toll. Darkness around all untraced, the only hope is divine grace. Message of service thou hast bought, healthy life has Chaitanya wrought. Unknown to all, it's full of grace. That's your gift, your divine grace. Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. This gives us a life new and fresh. Worship thy feet, your divine grace. Had he not come who had told the message of Krishna forceful and bold, that's your right, you have the maze. Save me a fallen, your divine grace. The line of service as drawn by you is pleasing and healthy like morning dew. The oldest of all, but in new dress, miracle done, your divine grace. Abhay Charan. Abhay also composed a speech which he read before the assembly guests and members of Gaudiya Math. Although his first language was Bengali, his English was clear and natural. Somehow in this simple couplet, Abhay had captured the essence of spiritual master's preaching against the Mayavadis, and Bhaktisiddhanta took it as an indication of how well Abhay knew the mind of his Gurudev. Abhay was delighted when he heard that the couplet was pleasing to his spiritual master. One of the Abhay's godbrothers compared this verse to Abhay to a verse in which Rupa Goswami had expressed the inner thinking of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and thus moved him to ecstasy. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati also found the essay pleasing and he showed it to some of his confidential devotees. He instructed the editor of the Harmonist, whatever he writes, publish it. In 1935, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati came to install the deity of Lord Krishna to Lord Krishna and to institute deity worship at the Bombay Center. He was pleased with what his disciples had done so far, and Bhakti Saranga Maharaj admitted that this much of work was done due to Abhay Babu, who had collected funds and established the new center. Why is Abhay living separately? Bhakti Saranga asked. He should be the president of this Bombay Center. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati replied, it is better that he is living outside your company. He will do, when time comes, he will do everything himself. You don't have to recommend him. Abhay had not been present when this was spoken, but his godbrother told him what Srila Bhakti Siddhanta had said. These words of his spiritual master, with their mysteriously prophetic air, were important to Abhay. He treasured the words within himself and meditated upon their meaning. Abhay's fifth meeting with Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Vrindavan. In November 1935, he was again with his spiritual master in Vrindavan. It was Kartik season, an ideal time to visit Vrindavan, and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was staying for a month with his disciples at peaceful Radha Kunda, the sacred lake where Radha and Krishna used to sport. Having heard of his spiritual master's stay there, Abhay, bringing his son with him, had travelled from Bombay just to have darshan of his spiritual master. To see Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was always an occasion of jubilation, but to see him in Vrindavan was an added perfection. This meeting with his beloved guide and friend was different from the time in 1932 when Abhay had seen him on the Vrindavan Parikrama. Now Abhay was no longer sitting anonymously in the back of the room. Now he was a bona fide disciple, recognized as a Kavi who had written the praiseworthy poem and essay, the young man who listened well, the devotee who had helped Allahabad Mutt and who had established the Matha in Bombay. Already on this visit, Abhay had occasion to be alone with his spiritual master, who had remembered Abhay's son and presented him with a small bhandi jacket. And now they walked together along on the bank of Radha Kunda. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta turned and spoke confidently to Abhay. There has been some quarrelling among his leading disciples in Calcutta, he said, and this had distressed him very much. Even now in Vrindavan, it weighed heavily on his mind. Some of his disciples had been fighting over who would use various rooms and facilities at the Gaudiya Math headquarters in Calcutta. These devotees were all members of the same Matha, and the building was for propagating Krishna consciousness under the leadership of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. Yet even in the spiritual master's presence they were quarrelling. Brahmanas and Vaishnavas were supposed to be free from envy of any creature, but what to speak of envy of one another? If they were to fight now, what would happen? What would they do after spiritual master passed away? Abhay had no part in these matters and did not know the details of who was involved. But as he listened to his spiritual master, he also became distressed. Deeply concerned, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta said to Abhay, Aghun Jwalbe, there will be fire. One day there will be fire in Calcutta Gaudiya Math, and that fire of the party interest would spread and destroy. Abhay heard about this. Abhay heard but did not know what to make of it. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta had fought so long and boldly to establish that anyone of any birth could be elevated to become a Brahmana or a Sannyasi or a Vaishnava. But his followers became contaminated by a little wealth and desire for prestige, thereby showing themselves to be still low-class men despite their training and purification. Then his mission would be disrupted. If in the name of religion they became attached to ease, position, prestige, it could only mean that they had failed to grasp the teachings of their spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada, he was lamenting that these men are simply after stones and bricks of the building. He condemned. He was very, very sorry. When we were living in a rented house, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta said, if we could collect 200 or 300 rupees, we were living very nicely at Ultadanga. We were happier then. But because we have been given this marble palace in Bagh Bazaar, there is friction between our men. Who will occupy this room? Who will occupy that room? Who will be the proprietor of this room? Everything is planning is in different ways. It would be better to take the marble from the walls and secure money. If I could do this and print books, that would be better. Abhay felt his spiritual master speaking to him in an urgency, as if asking for help or warning him to avert a disaster. But what could he do? Srila Bhakti Siddhanta then said directly to Abhay, Amar Ichha Chila Kichu Bhai Karana. I had a desire to print some books. If you ever get money, print books. Standing by Radha Kund and beholding the spiritual master, Abhay felt the words deeply enter his own life. If you ever get money, print books. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srila Prabhupada. My Guru Maharaj said, personally he said that when we were living in a rented house, if we could collect 200, 300 rupees, we were very nicely living in Ultadanga. And since then, Jayadvaita had given us this marble temple. Jayavidatta had given us this marble temple. Gaudiya Math. There is a friction between our men. Who will occupy this room? Who will occupy that room? Who will be proprietor of the room? Tirtha Maharaj, Kushya Bhava was giving one tablet that this is, everyone is planning in different ways. So Guru Maharaj said, he was personally instruct me that if you could sell this marble of this temple and secure some money, and if I could print some books, that would have been better. That would have been better. Abhay receives the final instruction from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur through letter December 1936. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was in poor health at Jagannath Puri. Abhay was in Bombay and he wanted to write to his Guru Maharaj a letter. He was a little kind upon me, Abhay thought. He will understand my request, and he began to write. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. You have got many disciples and I am one of them, but they are doing direct service to you. Some of them are brahmacharis, some of them sannyasis, but I am a householder, I cannot. Sometimes I give monetary help while I cannot give you direct service. Is there any particular service I can do? 2 weeks later, Abhay received a reply. I am fully confident that you can explain in English our thoughts and arguments to the people who are not conversant with the languages of other members. This will do good to yourself and as well as your audience. I have every hope that you can turn yourself into a good English preacher if you serve the mission to inculcate the noble impression of Lord Chaitanya's teaching in the people in general as well as philosophers and religionists. Abhay at once recognized this to be the same instruction he had received at the first meeting in 1922. He took it as a confirmation. There was now no doubt as to the purpose of his life. What was his spiritual master had said in Calcutta in 1922 had not been a chance remark, nor had that been a chance meeting. The instruction was the same. Turn yourself into a very good English preacher. That will do much good to yourself as well as your audience. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki.